we are buying it not only with Latinos, we're also with Canadians. And Canadians have questions about immigration also, because Canadians might need a visa in order to move to the States. There's people willing to move.
Oh, there's a lot of Canadians that I think, the economic environment and for some people the political environment. But for sure, there's always been. It's not just, I would say, what's transpired over the past like year or two. There's always been an interest in Canadians either investing in the U.S. or immigrating to the U.S.
Yep.
And or like just buying businesses. I mean, we're neighboring countries.
Yep.
And when you have a population, a Canadian population that is almost essentially the population of like one state in the U.S., like California could pretty much be the population of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Canadians realize, as I did in coming to the U.S., that there's a massive opportunity just outside their backyard.
Yep. And Joe, you started here in this country with an E2 visa, investor visa, just like I did. I actually still have the E2 visa. And today we're going to talk about that visa because we have a good friend of us, Tomas Resendez, an immigration lawyer that has been helping me and my team and all of our partners in Buy in America. And he's an expert on E2 visas, so we're going to discuss about it. But I think it's important to make things clear for people that wants to invest in the U.S. that they have to consider also, if they want to move their families to the U.S., you have to do something more comprehensive. You have to also think on immigration law, not only on the investments themselves, because not all the investments are going to give you the opportunity to apply for a visa. So we're going to talk to Tomas about it.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of misconceptions. I mean, I've been in the U.S. now for 30 years. I've lived half my life in Canada, and
you just told everybody your age.
Oh gosh. So, hey, listen, there's no shame. There's no shame. I've got the experience.
Yeah.
But no, there's definitely a lot of misconceptions on what can be done, what can't be done, how difficult or how easy it is. So yeah, we welcome our good friend, our partner, Tomas. And yeah, guys, for the Canadians that are listening, pay attention. I think this is going to be a great Q&A with a very knowledgeable and experienced immigration attorney. And I know, again, there's a lot of Canadians that are interested right now, and how do I navigate my way into the U.S.? So It's going to be good.
Yeah. So Tomas, how are you?
Do we have him? Do we lose him?
Is Tomas there? Yeah, he's here.
Hey guys, how you guys doing?
We were about to answer immigration questions without you, which probably wouldn't have been the best thing to do. But
right. All good. How about you guys? How you doing?
Good, man. Good.
So Tomas, there are so many lawyers, but very few with experience and specialize on the investors on the E2 visas.
Correct. Yes. So the E2 visa. Correct.
Yeah. So let's kind of make the introduction in talking about. So the people that are listening to this and have questions have a thorough understanding of what to expect. Like your background. I mean, you exclusively deal with immigration. You help a lot of Mexicans, a lot of Canadians, a lot of like just foreign nationals that want to come to the U.S. Correct?
Right. So that's an important thing to talk about, because there's a lot of lawyers that focus on immigration specifically, but immigration itself has very different branches that you can specialize further into. My firm specializes in corporate immigration, which involves investor visas, work visas, but mainly we work with entrepreneurs. That's our specialty, which involves or includes the E2 visa. Yeah.
So do you have to be? I'm going to ask you questions sort of through the lens of a Canadian. I'm a Canadian myself that came to the U.S. and gosh, it would have been helpful in working with someone like you. I did work with an immigration firm. They were a big firm. Probably, I would say that the biggest hurdle for me was because I dealt with such a big firm, I was really oblivious to a lot of the things that you can do and can't do. So this is going to be a great opportunity to ask like very simple questions, and then maybe some of the myths that exist in Canadians thinking, again, this is what I can and can't do. So I want to start off by asking this question. Me, myself, being an investor in real estate, there's this idea that you could just simply buy property in the U.S. and you're going to be able to like either move or be granted a visa. Is
Right.
that true? Is that not true? Fill in the details.
So yes and no. Buying property, I would say, is the first step towards getting a visa or being able to immigrate to the U.S. Why? Because and we're talking about the E2, which is the visa that most ties with immigration or with real estate investments. So buying a property, the E2 visa requires you to invest a substantial amount of money. That's the first requirement. That's why people say, okay, I'm going to buy a property. That's substantial. That's a lot of money. So with that, I'm going to get my visa. Well, yes, that's the first requirement. That's why it's the first step. The second step is to stimulate the economy. What does that mean? Basically, create jobs, create jobs so that U.S. citizens and green card holders can work for you or in your project. How do we do it with real estate? Well, it's tricky, right? It's not just about buying and renting the property. We have to do some kind of active operations within the company. What does that mean? Either remodeling, so fix and flip, either construction, so buy the land and do a new construction, or three, you can buy 3, 4, 5 properties, and at that point, you can do a property management company. And with that property management company, you are going to have employees, and that's how we give the second requirement: stimulate the economy through a property management company, right? With just the 5, 4 properties that you're managing, you have the people that do the landscape, you have your plumbers that are on call, you have the people that are collecting rents, and that's how we tie real estate investments into the E2 visa, so that you can get it and come live in the U.S.
So it can't be, just to clarify, for the people that are listening to this, it's not, you cannot just simply come to the U.S. and, buy 3 or 4 or 5 rental properties, et cetera, and be able to, sustain off of like passive income and justify a visa that way. Like what you're describing is operational procedures.
Something more active.
Correct. Something more an active investment. So if you buy 4 or 5 properties and you rent them out, but you hire a third party to do the property management for you, then that doesn't qualify. But if you yourself open up an LLC and do the property management yourself, you hire your employees, you have your website, and not only your properties, when you start managing other people's properties, then that would qualify for the E2 visa.
Okay, now can you, as a Canadian, just cross over the border, buy property, and fix it up yourself without a visa?
So Canadians have what's called the visa waiver program, and they don't need a visa to cross the border, right? That's everybody knows that. With that visa waiver, you're allowed to do very few things that constitute investment and what to do with properties, right? So what you can do is you can open up an LLC, you can open up bank accounts, you can invest, you can buy property, but you can't yourself do anything that is considered work. You can't yourself be remodeling the houses. You can't yourself be collecting rent. So you would have to hire people to do that for you.
If you want to, and this is I just want to make this like distinction, right? Because I think there's a big myth behind this. Like, hey, it's my property, I own it. It's in my name. Why can't I fix my own property? You're telling me I can't change the light bulb. I can't do my own plumbing. So what you're clearly saying is, even as a Canadian who's buying investment property, you buy one single property in the U.S., you you can't.
You cannot.
You can't go ahead and remodel this property yourself. That constitutes working.
Right. That constitutes working, and that is illegal under the visa waiver program. That's why the E2 visa exists, so that you can come into the US and manage your own operations, right? Without the E2 visa, you will need to hire third-party contractors or property management companies that would manage that property for you.
I think, Tomas, we have discussed this too much over the time with Mexicans. That's a big misconception about what's to be the owner of a business and what's to work in the business, right? And I think, of course, Canadians have the advantage of having the visa waiver program, but that is like getting the B1, B2 visa, the tourist visa or the business visa, but that allows you just to own, not to work in the business, right? So I think that, and what we're talking about here, we're saying so much investment and rental investment or homes or real estate investment, but in reality, it's a business. You got to think on it as a business, right? In order to get the visa, and in order to protect yourself to having an immigration problem.
Correct. Yeah. So culture-wise, when you think when non-U.S. citizens, because the U.S. culture does do that, they think like this. When you buy a property, you want to put it on an LLC, right? Mexican culture, Joe, I don't know what's about Canadian culture, but they don't usually do LLCs for rental properties. They just put it under their own name. They buy the property and they just start collecting rent. It's not a known thing. It's not something that they usually do when they buy property. So here in the US, you want to do an LLC. You want to formalize the business of renting out a property so that you can get tax benefits, you can get legal benefits, and more importantly, your immigration benefits if you're a foreign national.
What about so we focused on real estate investing, but let's just talk about business in general. If a Canadian wants to come to the US, they're thinking about moving out of Canada, packing up, leaving, coming to greener pastures. Some may not agree. I do. And let's talk about the difficulty of it, like how convoluted is the process, or for that matter, how simple is the process? What would be the minimum requirement? Like someone that's just starting from scratch, but has this idea, like I would love to do it, but I don't even know where to begin. I wouldn't even know how much I have to have. Obviously, there's specifics and details to like maybe each business venture, but you know, just as an opening like dialogue for someone that's considering it.
All right. So first step would be open up an LLC. That should be your first step once you decide that you want to do this, right? That's what you said, that I'm going to invest in the US. I know what I'm investing in and I want to get the visa. Your first step would be open up an LLC or an Inc., whatever your accountant tells you to open up, right? Because everyone is different and everybody has their own tax strategy. So LLC or Inc., you open that up. That's the first step. Second step is you open up a bank account for the LLC, all right? Once you have the bank account for the LLC, then the third step is transfer the money from Canada or wherever it is into the LLC. Next step is invest. You need to invest before you get the visa, right? In real estate specifically, it's a little tricky because well, we mentioned that it has to be an active investment. What does active mean? It has to have operations, daily expenses, daily movements in your bank account, things like that. It just can't be, I bought a property and I'm renting it out. No, it has to be something active. So what does active mean? Well, like we just said, either remodeling or new construction, right? So if you're going to do real estate investing, what I recommend is at least 2 projects before we send you out to the consulate. 2 projects, what does that mean? So I buy one house, I fix it, I sell it, and then I do the second one. Once you're in the second one and you're like halfway through the remodeling, that's the point where I say, okay, I'm confident or I'm comfortable building your application and sending you out to the U.S. consulate. So at that point, during or after the second project, that's when we can send you out to get your E2 visa.
But do these people have to be employees of your company or can they be contracted?
It depends on the industry, right? Talking about real estate, it can be contract work because that's what the industry calls for. If it was a restaurant and you're a restaurant and you're saying, look, I'm only doing contractors for my restaurant are going to be like, well, that's not good, because restaurants usually have a payroll, have W-2s, and have people on payroll. So it depends on the industry. For real estate, I would say contractors are good.
Now the tricky part, okay, but the tricky part with real estate is, unlike maybe some other investments, you can finance real estate. So I guess this is a two-part question, and one is, how much money would a Canadian need to invest? Like, is there a minimum? Can you just come to the U.S. with 10,000 and get a visa, or do you need 100,000, or do you need $1 million? That's part one, and then part two, you can finance real estate even as a Canadian. Mm-hmm. There's foreign national loans programs, much more extensive than when I started 30 years ago. So for immigration purposes, is financing like frowned upon, or do they want to see like an injection of your capital?
So they want to see an injection of your capital, but legally speaking, you can use financing, you can use loans, you can use things like that, except you cannot use your own company's assets for your initial investment, for the loan, right? So let's say I'm gonna put $10,000, just 10,000, and then the rest I'm gonna finance it against the asset that I'm getting under the LLC. That is not an ideal case. At least I would like to see you injecting 50,000. That's my bare minimum, and then you can finance the rest.
Right? So for 50,000, someone can begin the process.
Right. So if you put 50,000 down in your projects and finance the rest, I'm okay with that. But if you put less than that and you finance the rest through your LLC, because I know with real estate you can finance through your own LLC, it doesn't necessarily have to be your personal assets. Because if it's personal assets, then you can finance 100%, right? But if we're talking about real estate and you're financing through the LLC with the property that you're buying, I would like to lease that to at least see $50,000 from the investor into the LLC.
Now he's saying, so Tomas, you're saying you want to at least see 50,000. I guess if I'm a Canadian and I'm listening to this for the first time, I think what would be brewing in my mind is, are there actual like written laws that say, like in black and white, you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or it sounds like you're saying you would at least like to see. It feels like this is maybe more of a subjective process.
Exactly, Joe. You're exactly right. Immigration law is very subjective to the officer that's interviewing at that point in time in that U.S. consulate, because the U.S. consulate in Canada might have different rules than the one in Mexico and the one in Spain and the one in Argentina. So every U.S. consulate interprets the law differently, right? So for Canadians, we like to see at least 50,000 from the investor into the LLC, and you can finance the rest. If it was Mexico, I would say another thing. If it was Spain, I would be saying another thing. And it really depends. And what I say today might change what I say in a year, because maybe the U.S. consular officers rotate. So now it's a different criteria, right?
So are you saying it's more favorable for Canadians over Mexicans or maybe Argentinians? Like,
yeah, some U.S. consulates are easier to get the visa approved than others, and it really depends on a lot of things: the economy of that country, the political party that's in power at that point in time. So everything is based on a lot of factors, and I would say that it changes all the time. That's why you need to be working with an attorney that is constantly doing E2 visas in that consulate specifically, because the criteria changes every day.
And I've seen it, Tomas, during the years that I have renewed my visa, how the same consulate has changed the criteria and the paperwork they need and the way you present it, and everything seems to be updated, right?
Yeah. I can tell you that 15 years ago, you could have just gone with the promise of investing and you would have gotten the visa. Now they want to see the business already running and everything is invested. So again, it changes all the time. Maybe 10 years from now, we'll be able to just get the visa with the promise of investing. But at this point in time, the criteria is what we just talked about: 2 projects, give or take, 50,000, give or take. Again, the more you invest, the better. The more projects you have, the better. But for bare minimum, right now I would like to see 50,000, 2 projects, you can finance the rest.
But you say something, Tomas, minimum 50,000, but that's continuous investment. That doesn't mean that you put 50,000, do one project and get out of there.
Correct.
No, I mean, you have to keep that money there and keep moving it, right? So the second project, the third project, you're going to submit your application at the second, but you need more projects.
Exactly. So that's why I'm saying 2 projects at least, because you can invest 50,000 for one project and you might even need more for one project. Doesn't mean that you qualify. That's why I couple the 50,000 requirement with the 2 project requirement, because other than just investing a substantial amount and creating jobs, I need it to be continuous. I need you to be able to keep doing what you're doing, because at the time of renewal, 5 years from now, they're gonna look at the history, and if you only did the 2 projects that you did initially and you did nothing else, they're not gonna renew your visa.
Right? But correct me if I'm wrong, Tomas. You can, as a Canadian, and I'm trying to find the path of least resistance, right? Yeah. Tell me if you agree or disagree with this. I think, okay, I've talked to Tomas. Tomas has helped me get this visa. I'm getting into a real estate project and I need 50,000. Once you obtain that visa, there's obviously a renewal of the visa, but can that just be used as like an entry point? And then once you're in the US, then you can look at other investments, maybe buying other businesses, and then transition or add to it, like, and maybe enhance the possibilities of like extending and, changing visas, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So let's say you start with the real estate business and you do your first project and you do well on it. You do your second one and it's great. You do the third and the fourth, but by the fourth, you're not really liking either the business or the returns, or really the market's dying down. So what you do, you can pivot. You can definitely get another business. You can either get a second LLC, or you can, with the same LLC, get a secondary business under the same one, and you can change businesses while you have your visa, to make the renewal process easier. Definitely, you can do that. So it's a good entry point, like you said.
Tomas, it's Saturday. We know that you have a family to take care of, but the last question for me will be, how much time do we need to get the visa? So we want to start the process. We're going to do the first investment. We're going to open the LLC. How much time do I need before I get the visa and I can move?
So an LLC, average time for a foreign national without social security number, takes about a month and a half to get the LLC ready. Once the LLC is ready, it takes another, and you're going to tell me more than I can tell you, about 3-4 months to get those 2 projects ready. Give or take.
Correct, yeah.
Plus another 3-4 months of the U.S. Consulate to review your application and schedule your appointment. So you're talking about 6 to 8 months before we can get you an interview at the U.S. Consulate.
Yeah.
So basically start sooner rather than later.
And even if it's just an idea, talk to an immigration attorney so he can guide you on your specific steps to take, because what I'm telling you right now might not apply to you. Every case is different. Every case is unique. This is just like the general aspect of how it works. But talk to an attorney, even if it's a year from now, 2 years from now, even if it's just an idea. Talk to an attorney, let them know your specific situation, and he'll be able to guide you on what exactly you need to do in your situation.
Before you decide on any investment, before anything, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I have one last question for you. I mean, I actually have many questions, and I'm sure people like listening do as well. But I just want to end off with this. So maybe you can either squash the notion or idea that because Trump, like, I have a lot of family members in Canada, like, oh God, now's not the time to come, right? Actually, even afraid to like just cross the border and visit. Right. Is there any truth to, like, it's so much more complicated now because of the Trump administration? Like, have the immigration, has it been this like massive upheaval in immigration laws, or is he just really enforcing laws that were really just already there to begin with? So can you just quickly speak to, like, do people have to wait, or can you still go through a similar process that people have done over the past few years?
Right. So look, immigration is a huge world in itself. So I can tell you that some aspects of immigration are stricter, Some aspects are the same. Some aspects are even faster and easier. So I would say for this specifically topic, the E2 visa, it's the same as it was 4 years ago. It's the same as it was 3 years ago. It's the same as it is right now. There's no bad time to start this E2 visa process. I
So
wouldn't say
basically, the U.S. is still welcoming with open arms immigration.
investors, yes, for sure.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. Just wanted to make
Ready.
the record straight.
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, Tomas, thank you so much for your time, and we hope to have you here more often because we need to speak too much about the E2 visas, and I think we have to bring specific cases and ask you
Yeah.
if that makes sense or not, right?
That's one of the best ways to talk about this because every case is different. Every kind of business has a different strategy. So talking about projects, real people, real projects would be more beneficial for sure.
Yeah, it's very interesting that Canadians are one of the countries that are bringing more E2s into the US, but primarily through big companies that are sending
Yeah.
employees, supervisors,
Mhm.
and stuff. But now
Yeah.
we're talking about families that they want to invest and move, right? So thank you for the time. We're going to be discussing this subject, of course, way more often.
All right, guys. Thank you for your time. Thank you for
Tomas.
inviting me. Bye.
Thank you.
Nice weekend.
Bye.
So one of the things, Joe, that Tomas was mentioning, open your LLC. I think that's one of the, if we don't talk to an immigration lawyer about the visas, the other problem or the other mistake foreign nationals do is that sometimes they start buying property without setting up an LLC, or if they set up an LLC, they just do it online because they just thought it was way cheaper there. But so there are many mistakes that people can do.
Yeah, and I would say that for any Canadian, it sounds like relatively simple. Just open up an LLC, and then you can fund it and start investing in the U.S. But I would I would add some caution to that. When you're setting up the LLC, nowadays we live in a digital world, and there's so much marketing and advertising. Hey, we can set up your LLC for, like, I've seen stuff $50,
Yeah.
$100, and I'm very much opposed to that kind of advertising. So I would caution for the people that are listening: have a professional set up your LLC, because what you think you're going to save from the onset, the probability of incurring greater expenses afterwards because things weren't done correctly is a high probability. And especially when you're dealing with immigration, there is no room for error. There isn't, oops, sorry, Mr. Immigration officer. We didn't mean to draft up our operating agreement like that. This is what I meant. I'm going to go ahead and get that corrected. I'm going to have an attorney get involved, and I'm going to have the documentation corrected. No, you get one shot at this, and believe you me, you apply, the stuff is documented, right? So if you get dismissed, if you get rejected, and you come back a second time, now you're heavily going to be scrutinized. So the more errors that are made, the worse the chances are. You got one shot at doing this correctly. So I would definitely, caution against trying to set up your own LLC or falling for, hey, I could just pay $100 and get it set up. We have immigration attorneys that we work with, professionals that focus on setting up LLCs. We've done that in Buying America for our clients. So we're advising just do it right. Taking shortcuts, not good.
No, because you don't understand that. We are not, as foreign nationals, when you arrive here to the States, you are not used to the business culture. And one of the things that you have to learn is that lawsuits really happen. I've been sued 2-3 times by employees, by customers, whatever. And man, I was so close to lose everything I have in my property because I put everything on the same LLC and it was not structured right. And then we made mistakes and we pierced the corporate veil so easy.
Yeah.
Because even though that you have a property on an LLC, that doesn't mean that it's 100% protected if you do mistakes on how you operate. Like, for example, paying stuff from your own pocket for the LLC, and when in reality you should have your own LLC checking account, for your expenses, even a credit card or a debit card for those expenses and separate everything from your from your personal expenses. So people do not understand those kind of things because, I mean, in our culture, when you are outside of the US, I'm very sure Canada is kind of like the same way. But you come here and, man, lawsuits.
Well, the Canadian culture has changed most definitely from when I was growing up. But, when I was growing up, the saying was, if the U.S. sneezes, Canada catches a cold, right? So whatever happens in the U.S. sort of spills over.
And Mexico got pneumonia.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, hey, the U.S. obviously has significant impact on the Canadian culture and Canadian economy, as it does the Mexican. And I know I highly encourage Canadians to, whether you want to live in the U.S. or not, I highly encourage Canadians to invest in the U.S. I mean, there's just like tremendous opportunity. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to move here, but if you do, hey, there's that option. But at the very least, I would highly encourage Canadians to invest in the U.S. And you got to understand the nuances. You have to understand what the differences are. I remember when I would cross the border into the U.S., and instantly what I would see was slip and fall. Hey, call this attorney, or have you been hurt? Like, I mean, yes. It almost felt like in every which way I turned, I saw like billboards advertising for lawsuits. So it was definitely visible for me as a Canadian crossing over the border. But that really, all that does is tell you have to be educated and you have to really understand how to set yourself up properly, but it shouldn't like thwart your interest in investing in the US. Believe you me, growing up investing in Canada and then now investing in the US for half my life, maybe I sound a little biased, but I've seen both sides of it, and there's just tremendous opportunity in the US. But you do have to understand the nuances. You have to make sure that you're protected, and if you do things correctly, there's endless opportunities.
And one of the opportunities is that there's financing available for foreign nationals. If you know how to do it, and actually an LLC could help you. Banks like LLCs because they see more structure and they might think, oh, he knows how to do business in the US. I'm going to trust this guy more, right?
Yeah, for sure. And as Tomas said, right, there's regardless of the who's in command and what the political climate looks like, the reality is the U.S. has always been very receptive to foreign capital, to foreign investment, to foreign immigration. Don't let the media fool you. There's a lot of fear that's created. And so, people think, hey, maybe now's not the right time. No, it's always a really good time. The U.S. is definitely receptive and open to business. It's a very, pro-business climate. And I genuinely don't know of any other country that is that receptive. If you come to Canada as a foreign national, you as a Mexican or as an American, and want to conduct business and want to, first off, LLCs don't exist in Canada, but even if you want to, set up a company and own it 100%, the Canadian climate, one, is very challenging for Canadians,
yes,
let alone trying to, allow foreigners to invest. But imagine coming to the U.S. and being able to open up an LLC, own it 100%, being able to set up bank accounts, being able to get loans and financing from American institutions, and the endless opportunities with like private lenders. It's a very pro-business environment that, I hate to say it, I think a lot of Canadians are somewhat like ignorant or oblivious to this existing in their own backyard. But for the ones that are aware, they've taken advantage of it. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of Canadians that have invested in the U.S. And for Canadians that also like to vacation in the U.S., you always have to be mindful of the Canadian-U.S. exchange. Well, I've worked with Canadians over the past like a few decades, and they now have investment in the US. So they're not really feeling the impact of the currency conversion, because as soon as they step foot into the US, they get to tap into their US revenue. So earn US dollars, spend US dollars. Whereas if you have nothing in this country and you're coming from Canada and you need to convert your Canadian dollar into US, I mean, you're definitely feeling that.
Exactly.
pinch. So
and one of the advantages is that once that you have an operation in the US, you also have a lot of tax benefits because you can deduct a lot of the expenses. Even if you come from Canada just to visit in the US and go around your properties and, I don't know, check them out or whatever, you already have a visa, you already have a social, man, you have US income, you can deduct a lot of those expenses that normally will have to come from your pocket. Now they come from your US income, and you make it deductible. You don't pay too many taxes, and you don't have the double taxation, right? Because there's
reciprocity. There's reciprocity between the United States and Canada from a tax standpoint. So.
And so I think there's, as you said, financing available. You have the protection, and the business culture here. I always think it that one day I remember I heard that money or capital has no citizenship. It can move, right? But the U.S. Always attracts money. And the other day I was seeing this stat, and because a lot of people is like, oh no, the U.S. is going down. But then you see this report that says that where are the millionaires of the world going out of and going to? And they are going out of China, going out of India, and they are going where? To the US. I mean, the US is still the second place in the world receiving millionaires. Why? Because, of course, the business culture, because of the tax system that attracts it, because of the immigration law that kind of welcome, of course, investors, business owners, people that comes to create jobs, to pay taxes. And man, I mean, I've seen it. And the tax system here in the US, even though is probably largest in the world, it's been written by business owners. So it has so many strategies to help you prevent generating or paying taxes. And one of the largest strategies I learned in my master's degree in accounting was invest in real estate. If you do it right and you know it, it's one of the best strategies, so you can get your money back faster, and you're going to get cash flow, you're going to get revenue, and a lot of times not necessarily paying taxes, depreciations, immediate expensing, plus refinancing, what we do in a lot of the projects that we do here in Buy in America. And one of the benefits that people get by getting into our group to become a member of Buy in America, we help them set up. We help them with Tomas get a visa, do a business plan, create the projects. Because as he said, in order to get the visa, you have to have an operating business, but you're not allowed to work in your business. So it seems like, what's first, the egg or the chicken, right? We help them with that. We help investors, we help people that wants to move, families, to create the projects, to do the business plans, to get them ready, to prepare, to structure them right. And then Tomas help us with the visa process.
It always amazes me. I mean, I'll kind of end off on this note, which is the U.S. is still looked at as a safe haven.
Yep.
We deal with foreign nationals all across the world, and there's still the strong appetite for wanting to invest in the U.S., right? Because there's still, and no country is perfect, okay? But at the end of the day, there's still foreign nationals from so many different countries that look at the U.S. as a safe haven and think, you know what, I want to take some of the capital from my country and I want to invest it in the U.S. because I feel comfortable knowing I've diversified and invested in that economic climate. And it never ceases to amaze me, being born and raised in Ontario, how people in Ontario, the cost of living and the amount of tax that Canadians pay in comparison to, let's say, you move to a place like Florida, which has no state income tax, beautiful weather. Like, it amazes me how you have to pay so much more in tax and what you earn to live in a place like Ontario. Whereas, heck, I would pay more to live in a place like Florida.
Yeah.
But yet it's the other way around. So I think, we're gonna be doing more live streams. We're gonna be getting into more details about the tax implications, getting into like case studies,
Mhm.
more on immigration. How, as a Canadian, you move to the U.S., what you could take advantage of. Again, case studies of what it looks like if you're investing 100,000 or $1 million in Canada versus if you're investing 100,000 or $1 million in the U.S., and how much further you can get. So this is going to be very informative, very educational for the Canadians. As a Canadian myself, I wish this kind of stuff had existed when I first started.
Oh, tell me about it.
You as a Mexican,
Yeah.
so I think this is why we have such a passion in educating like foreign nationals, because we went through it ourselves.
Yeah.
So
it was hard. It's been hard. Nothing has been given free. So I think this group, this effort we're doing. You have been investing, doing business on real estate for decades already in the U.S. I've been an entrepreneur and a business owner for several companies here in the U.S. for the same 20-something years. Half of our lives we have spent it here. We have a lot of experience. I'm an expert on E2 visas projects because myself, I have been getting it, members of my family, some friends, some partners. So we understand these kind of processes. And of course, as I always said, what I want to do is to pave the road for whoever is coming behind us. Because when we arrived here, it was just like a green forest, but it has been tough. We have fallen, we have made so many mistakes that have cost us hundreds, if not millions of dollars in this country. And we want to put it, of course, on your service. So to help you guys to come and invest in the US. And if you want to move, of course, we want to help you as well.
So tell the audience listening, if they want to get a hold of someone like Tomas, who is associated with our organization and has been very instrumental in helping a lot of people obtain visas. So for anyone that wants further immigration information, aside from like listening to what we're going to be doing and what's upcoming, wants more information on our organization, how they can they can reach us.
So we have a website, of course, buyingamerica.group, and we want you to get into our group, and you can see the QR code here in the screen. Check us out. Actually, I have published a book about my first years in the US, how I got the visa back then, how I started it, make many mistakes I did. So you can download it for free at buyingamerica.group. And becoming a member, you're going to get not only a lot of help, a lot of advice on how to structure your LLC. We can help you open it. But also, the most important thing, how to structure your investment towards the visa. And of course, towards income, towards cash flow. And you always said this, and I love it, Joe. You're going to piggyback, on projects because we have a lot of experience. We already have contacts. We have immigration lawyers like Tomas, but we also have corporate lawyers. We have CPAs. We have banks. We have so many contact lenders. And the most important thing, we have projects. Like yesterday, we were visiting some of the projects that we have here in Florida. And you have no clue how much value we give you to put into service so you can take advantage. Our investors, man, they buy homes, we remodel them, we get people to rent it, you get the income, and our investors have not even seen the homes by themselves personally. It's such a huge value that people sometimes do not see.
Well,
But
and
we make it so simple.
I can't stress enough the advantage. Like, you know, sometimes they say when opportunity is right in front of you, you don't see it because there's really nothing to look for. It's just there, and it just becomes normal, and you think it'll always be there. It never ceases to amaze me how Canadians who, and probably 80% of the Canadian population, I'd read a stat long ago, I think like 80 or maybe even higher percentage of the Canadian population lives within like 100 miles of the US border from East Coast to West Coast. So close. You know, think about this. So many Canadians, 80+% of the Canadian population, yet they don't even know what's on the other side as far as like opportunities, right?
Yeah.
And Mexico,
Same way.
You know, same thing. We're like neighboring countries, and there's so much opportunity. Yet you have people from like Japan, from China, from the UK, from Australia that have to travel.
Yeah, the whole world.
You know, immense traveling to like come to the US. Meanwhile, all you have to do is, for many people, just get in your car
and
drive over the border, and you know the opportunities are there. So to come and take a look at what we're doing, it's yeah, you're not necessarily having to jump on a plane and do it. But
yeah. And Joe, before we go, okay, I want to invest. I want to get the visa. I want to structure an LLC. But how can I distinguish or find the right market? How can I find the right city to invest or the right even community to invest? Because in between the cities, you can have communities where it's not a good idea, and some other communities that, yes, let's do it here. How do you recognize cities that, without saying the cities that we are investing, because we normally don't put it just like live broadcast open to the public, because we want to protect our investors, of course.
Yeah.
But how do you recognize what aspects of those cities do you take in consideration in order to think, this could be a good market? Because of course we are in 4 or 5 markets in the US, but this country could have 200.
Well, the first thing I'll say, and it took me some time to learn this lesson, is stop thinking that you have to like figure everything out on your own.
That's a big mistake we made.
You know, when I first started my investing career, I had heard this concept of OPM, right? And I was like, OPM, what does that mean? Other people's money, right? And it's like, hey, you gotta understand how to like leverage that so you can get into like many more projects, because there's only so much that financially like you have, right? But for me, that's where it stopped. And it probably took me many years to realize that it's not just like OPM when investing in real estate, other people's money, as in like banks, lenders, right? But it's OPB, other people's brains,
or like, other people's mistakes,
yeah,
or experiences.
Yes. You can leverage off. There's so much you can leverage off of.
Yes.
It's not just like monetary leverage. So what I would say that I learned throughout the years is there's a power in networking that I never really understood when I began, because it's a massive undertaking to say, hey, where are the business opportunities? What little like niches or what little pockets across the US? And for one person to have all the answers is virtually impossible. So this is why we created this group. This is why we created Buying America. And the more members that are part of Buying America, the more extensive brain power there is, and the more leverage we have out in the market to be able to negotiate and do more deals and get into like various businesses. So become part of the group. That's the first thing I would say, because there's a lot to learn, and you don't have to try and figure out, well, what markets you could piggyback off of the efforts. Like there was internet. I mean, when I first started and I was looking up like real estate deals, we'd get like what looked like phone books,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Of like MLS, and I have to flip through. It wasn't like going online, and or it was like knocking on doors. I mean, the world has changed. The world has like evolved. You don't have to figure this stuff out on your own.
No, and in this country, I think advice is expensive. Like legal advice, CPAs are expensive, but it's more expensive to make mistakes.
Oh,
and it cost me a lot of money to understand that, before I was trying to do everything by myself, to open the companies, to do. And then when you realize you structure everything wrong, and then to correct it, it's way more expensive.
So, well, and I always figured you had to experience for yourself, and that's how you learn in life, right?
Yeah.
You learn through experience. Well, I'm gonna like modify that a little bit. You can also learn through other people's experiences. That's the point of putting together case studies.
Yes.
So you can like really understand what works, what doesn't work, how are things evolving. It doesn't necessarily mean that you personally have to learn only through experience. You can learn through other people's experiences.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So when you ask the question, how are markets selected? I mean, we get into that in our calls. We're going to get into that more into like lives, like have special segments where we get into that. But just know this, like stay tuned, pay attention to when we do the lives, become a member, get on calls. We get into all these types of conversations. You get to engage with other members who are like-minded, have similar visions, want to accomplish the same things. And believe you me, even in 30 years of extensive investing and business experience myself, I still learn in hearing from others what they have experienced and pitfalls that like I had not heard of. Yep. So there's definitely a power in leveraging off of what others have done, what others have experienced.
And I want to finish with this. You're talking about leveraging, and sometimes people ask me, okay, Edmundo, if that opportunity is so good, why don't you take it? And I always said, yeah, the thing is that there are so many opportunities that you cannot take them all. So if we are together, if we make this incredibly nice, big, powerful group, we're going to have more leverage to go after way many more and bigger, larger opportunities. So that's what we want to achieve: help more people, get more visas, and go through more projects, and of course, change more people's lives. So that's what we want to do. This is Buy in America. You can visit us at buyinamerica.group and subscribe to our channel. We're going to be showing some of the investments that we are doing in other videos, and we're going to bring more advice like what Tomas just did today about immigration and the visa. So we're going to be talking about more visas and tax advantages, strategies, etc., because the U.S. has so many opportunities, and we want to buy America.
Thanks for listening, guys.